Imagine waking up one morning to find that one of the most iconic voices of British pop music has simply vanished from the spotlight. No more chart-topping hits, no more sold-out concerts, and barely a whisper in the tabloids. What really happened to Cliff Richard? Was it a personal choice, a hidden scandal, or something even more mysterious? Before we dive into video, please subscribe to our channel. When you think of British pop music legends, one name that instantly comes to mind is Cliff Richard. His journey to stardom is nothing short of extraordinary, and understanding his rise helps us see why his later disappearance from the limelight was so shocking. Cliff Richard's story begins in the late 1950s, a time when rock and roll was just starting to shake up the music world. Born Harry Roger Webb, he transformed himself into Cliff Richard, a name that would soon become synonymous with chart-topping hits and electrifying performances. Cliff's big break came in 1958 with his debut single, Move It. The song was a breath of fresh air for British youth, who were hungry for something new and exciting. Many music critics even say that Move It was the first true British rock and roll song. Almost overnight, Cliff became a teenage heartthrob with his slicked-back hair, charming smile, and energetic stage presence. He wasn't just another singer, he was a phenomenon. Young fans screamed his name at concerts, and his posters decorated bedroom walls across the country. But Cliff Richard wasn't just a one-hit wonder. He quickly proved that he had staying power. Throughout the 1960s, he released hit after hit, including classics like Living Doll, The Young Ones, and Summer Holiday. Each song seemed to capture the spirit of the times, and his popularity soared. He also starred in several successful films, further cementing his status as a household name. By the end of the decade, Cliff had become one of the UK's best-selling artists, rivaling even the Beatles in popularity. What made Cliff Richard truly special was his ability to adapt. As music trends changed, he evolved his style, moving from rock and roll to pop, and even dabbling in gospel and contemporary music. This versatility kept him relevant for decades, and he continued to attract new generations of fans. His clean-cut image and positive attitude also set him apart from many other rock stars of the era, making him a favorite among parents as well as teenagers. Cliff's influence on British pop culture cannot be overstated. He paved the way for countless artists who followed, and his music became the soundtrack to millions of lives. Awards, honors, and chart records piled up, and he was even knighted by the Queen for his contributions to music. By the time he reached the peak of his career, Cliff Richard was not just a singer, he was a living legend, a symbol of hope, joy, and the power of music to bring people together. For decades, Cliff Richard was everywhere, on the radio, on TV, in movies, and on stage. Fans grew up with his music, and his presence felt almost permanent. But then, something changed. Slowly, almost quietly, Cliff Richard began to fade from the limelight. It wasn't a sudden exit, but more like a gentle dimming of a once bright spotlight. This gradual disappearance left many people wondering, when did it all begin, and why? The first signs of Cliff's retreat from public life started appearing in the late 2000s. While he still released albums and performed at special events, his appearances became less frequent. The days of constant touring and regular TV specials seemed to be over. Fans noticed that he was no longer a regular guest on talk shows or a fixture at big music award ceremonies. Even his social media presence, which many stars used to stay connected with fans, was quieter than most. It was as if Cliff Richard was slowly stepping back, choosing to let the world move on without him in the center of it all. One of the most noticeable moments in this slow fade came after his 70th birthday celebrations in 2010. Cliff marked the milestone with a big tour and a lot of media attention. But after that, things changed. He started spending more time abroad, especially in Portugal, where he owns a home. The British press, always hungry for celebrity news, began to speculate about his absence. Was he retiring? Was he ill? Or was he simply tired of the constant attention that comes with fame? The situation became even more complicated in 2014, when Cliff Richard faced a highly publicized police investigation. Although he was never charged with any crime and was later cleared of all allegations, the experience was deeply traumatic. The media frenzy that followed was intense and relentless. For someone who had always valued his privacy and reputation, this was a turning point. Cliff himself admitted in interviews that the ordeal made him question whether he wanted to continue living in the public eye. After the investigation, Cliff's public appearances became even rarer. He released a few albums and made occasional performances, but the days of being a constant presence in British entertainment were clearly over. Fans missed him, and many wondered if he would ever return to the spotlight in the same way. The gradual nature of his disappearance made it even more mysterious. There was no big farewell, no dramatic announcement, just a slow, quiet retreat from the world that had once adored him. Whenever a beloved celebrity like Cliff Richard steps away from the spotlight, people naturally start to wonder why. Was it a personal decision, or was something else going on behind the scenes? Over the years, fans and the media have come up with several theories and speculations about the real reasons behind Cliff Richard's disappearance from the limelight. Let's explore the most talked about possibilities. One of the most common theories is that Cliff Richard simply chose to step back. After all, he had been in the public eye for more than 50 years, a lifetime of constant attention, pressure, and hard work. In interviews, Cliff has sometimes hinted at feeling tired and wanting more privacy. He once said that fame can be a golden cage, and that he sometimes longed for a normal life. It's easy to imagine that after decades of performing, traveling, and being scrutinized by the media, he might have wanted to enjoy some peace and quiet. Spending time in Portugal, away from the British press, could have been his way of finding that much-needed escape. Another theory centers around the intense media pressure and scandals that Cliff faced, especially in the 2010s. The police investigation in 2014, even though it ended with no charges, was a huge blow to his reputation and personal life. The media coverage was relentless, and Cliff later described it as one of the darkest periods of his life. Many believe that this experience made him lose trust in the press and the public, pushing him to withdraw even further. For someone who had always worked hard to maintain a clean image, the scandal, even though he was innocent, was deeply painful. It's not surprising that he might have wanted to avoid the spotlight after such a traumatic event. A third theory is that the music industry itself changed, making it harder for older artists to stay relevant. The rise of new genres, digital music, and younger stars meant that the industry's focus shifted away from legends like Cliff Richard. Some fans think that he was quietly pushed aside by changing trends and a new generation of listeners. While Cliff continued to release music, it didn't always get the same attention as before. This could have made him feel less motivated to stay in the public eye. In the end, the truth might be a mix of all these reasons. Personal choice, media pressure, and industry changes all played a part in Cliff Richard's gradual disappearance. The mystery only adds to his legend, leaving fans to wonder if he will ever return, or if he's finally found the peace he always wanted. When a celebrity disappears from the public eye, rumors and stories often take over. But sometimes, the best way to understand what really happened is to listen to the person themselves. Cliff Richard, despite his quieter life, has spoken openly in interviews and statements about his experiences, his feelings about fame, and why he chose to step back. His own words reveal a side of him that many fans may not have seen, a man who values peace, privacy, and personal happiness above all else. Cliff has always been honest about the pressures of fame. In several interviews, he described how being constantly in the spotlight can be exhausting. He once said, "Fame is a wonderful thing, but it can also be a prison." For Cliff, the endless attention from fans and the media was both a blessing and a burden. He loved performing and making people happy, but he also longed for moments when he could just be himself, away from the cameras and the noise. This desire for a more private life grew stronger as he got older. The 2014 police investigation was a turning point for Cliff. Even though he was never charged and was completely cleared, the experience left deep scars. In his autobiography and in TV interviews, Cliff spoke about how hurtful and unfair the situation was. He described feeling betrayed by the media, who reported on the case before he even knew about it himself. Cliff said, "It was like living in a nightmare. I felt like I had lost control of my own life." This painful chapter made him rethink his relationship with fame and the public. He admitted that after the ordeal, he found it hard to trust the press and felt safer keeping a lower profile. Despite everything, Cliff has always tried to stay positive. He often talks about the importance of faith, family, and true friends. In his own words, "Music will always be a part of me, but I also need time to just be Cliff, not Sir Cliff Richard the superstar." He has said that he still loves singing and performing, but now he chooses when and where to appear, on his own terms. This new approach allows him to enjoy life without the constant pressure of being in the spotlight. Cliff's honesty and openness have helped many fans understand his choices. By sharing his feelings and experiences, he reminds us that even the biggest stars are human. His words show that sometimes stepping back isn't about giving up. It's about finding peace, healing, and living life the way you want. Even though Cliff Richard has stepped away from the constant glare of the spotlight, his legacy is still very much alive. In fact, his influence on music and pop culture can be seen and felt in many ways today. For millions of fans around the world, Cliff's songs are more than just old hits. They are memories, emotions, and a reminder of happier times. His music continues to play on the radio, at parties, and in the hearts of people who grew up listening to him. One of the most powerful signs of Cliff Richard's lasting impact is the way new artists and musicians talk about him. Many British pop stars, both young and old, have named Cliff as one of their inspirations. His ability to reinvent himself and stay relevant for decades is something that many musicians admire and try to copy. Even today, you can find covers of his classic songs on YouTube and social media, performed by singers from all over the world. Tribute concerts and special events celebrating his career still draw big crowds, showing that his fan base remains strong and loyal. Cliff's influence goes beyond just music. He helped shape the image of the modern pop star, someone who is not only talented but also professional, kind, and dedicated to their craft. His clean-cut image and positive attitude set a standard for others to follow,